I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and this is At Home in Bloomington, brought to you by Karen Russell, Ruoff Home Mortgage. We profile the people, places, and resources that make Bloomington, Bloomington, and help you live your best life. At Home in Bloomington. Hello and welcome to At Home in Bloomington. I'm your host, Realtor Deb Tomorrow, joined as always by the lovely Miss Karen Russell, best damn lender in the state of Indiana. Hello.
Hey, Deb.
How's it going?
It's going great today.
Busy spring season. We are recording this in early April of 2019. If you're listening to this, future listeners, I always love that, to think people could be listening to this in
They will be listening.
2020, 2021, who knows when. But it's a gorgeous day and everybody's got spring fever and nobody's dressed. I'm not dressed appropriately. I think I have too many layers.
Okay, I'm glad that you cleared that up.
Well,
you are dressed appropriately.
I'm covered appropriately, but I'm struggling.
It started out chilly,
yeah,
and now it's like 70-something degrees. It's pretty nice.
I struggle with the season change and appropriate footwear and all that important stuff. So, okay, so let's get to our today's topic. It's yet another topic about something that neither of us are good at.
Okay.
So that doesn't really tell you much, does it?
That's lots of subjects, lots of categories.
I know, because every time we do a show, you're like, I'm interested in that. I'm not good at it. Could I be good at it? That's exactly what you're going to say at the end of today's show, right? So I think it's something that both of us would love to be better at. And actually, it's funny because this has happened a couple of times where you call me the day before we record a show and you ask me something and I know that it has to do with the next day's show. Okay. Like, I think you're psychic.
Yeah, I could very well be. I'm very in tune.
Intuitive, right? That's what Emily, our medium, says. Okay, so do you remember the question you asked me last night?
No. Oh, about cutting the
tree root.
The tree root.
Yes. So there's a small ornamental tree in your backyard, and you were wanting to put in a paper patio, and you were wanting to know if I thought, not me, but if Juris thought, because he's a landscaper, that you could cut that tree root and the tree would be okay.
Because we were completely shocked when we lifted up part of the ground right there.
And saw the tree root spread out so far. And we made up an answer.
Okay.
No, because our answer was, Juris said, I would cut it if it were mine, and I would take the risk. But I don't want to tell someone to cut it, and then all of a sudden something bad happens and it's my fault.
That's what I do in the lending world. Like, I'm pretty sure you're pre-approved, but I don't make that final decision.
Right?
Exactly, yes.
Well, here's the thing. Yes. We might be able to get the answer to that question today. I don't know.
Ooh, okay.
So I am going to introduce Helen May from May's Greenhouse family.
I was just seriously going to say, I hope that this is about, like, flowers and all of that. Yep. Did you not know that?
No.
I don't even know what kind of flowers they were.
Oh, you told me about I
got flowers yesterday at a closing, and I was like, I don't even know how to take care of this thing, but I have to, like, Google and...
Oh, it's a plant that goes in the ground?
It could go in the ground, or I could keep it in my house. I don't know yet.
Well, good luck to that plant. We need help. Helen, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be here.
So you are the daughter of the original Mays owners?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how long Mays has been around and why it's an institution.
Well, they officially opened in spring of 1965.
Wow.
I was in the hospital at that time having had my appendix out.
Oh, my goodness. So you missed opening day.
I missed opening day.
But you've made everyone since, right?
But I've been getting ready for opening day, so that was all right, too.
Awesome.
No, my father was in the furnace and air conditioning business.
Okay.
And he was getting up in age. I had just graduated from high school a few years before. Mm-hmm. And he decided those late night winter calls were just, too much.
Yeah.
And he'd always had an interest in growing plants and gardening, both he and my mother. And so they decided, just a small way, they were going to open a little place and sell some vegetable plants and maybe a few geraniums and so forth. And that's how it started out. We were only open from sometime about the 1st of April on into Memorial Day.
Okay.
We closed down. That's all we were open in the year. Mm-hmm. And it took off very well because he had a lot of friends, people who'd been his customers for years and so forth.
Oh, right. So they just followed him to the new business.
I guess he discussed it with some of them that he wanted to do it, so they expected it. And from the beginning, it grew every year, and it was wonderful. We were we had some experience in growing things, but we were still learning ourselves. And for the first years, we were only open until Memorial Day. And then it became obvious that we needed to be open longer. And then we needed a bigger parking lot.
Yeah.
Then we needed 2 more greenhouses. It was very, very exciting, really.
And you've always been located at the same location, right?
Yes.
So down on Old 37 South, if anyone knows that, or South Walnut Way South, just past Rogers.
South where Fairfax Road turns off, if people are familiar with that.
Yep. Well, I pass, because I live Old 37 South near Harrodsburg, so I pass May's greenhouse multiple times every day. So I feel like it's an old friend because I, pass it so much. So did you live in the house that was on the property, or did he buy that property specifically?
We bought the property. We moved into the house.
Oh, okay.
It had been a nursing home at one time.
Really?
Had 3 bedrooms.
Oh my
goodness. I don't know how they managed that.
Yeah, right. Bunk beds for the.
Well, I think the old lady there only would keep
a few people
at a time.
Wow. Yeah.
And anyway, the first year we didn't even have a sales shop as such. We just had a shade area with some wooden fencing on the top for shade.
Gotcha.
And then we had to put in a big refrigerator because we decided we'd sell produce in the summer.
Oh, okay.
And then the building where the vegetables had been sold, which was also just shade, was inadequate in the parking lot. So he turned his garden into a parking lot and built a building where the shade house had been for the vegetables.
Right.
And it just grew. It grew every year from then.
But was that area fairly rural?
Oh, yes.
Back then? Like I think about even, when I lived in Bloomington in the early 90s and we'd go down, towards Fairfax or something, that you kind of felt like you were out in the middle of nowhere. And then I left for about 10 years and I came back and there's a Kroger down there and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So it's definitely, you've seen a lot of changes in that area.
Yes, it's grown a lot.
Yeah.
The property my father bought was about 3.5, 3/4, they weren't sure because of the creek, acres. And then there was a trailer sales place immediately north, and when those folks retired, we bought a lot from them.
Okay.
My mother passed away in 73, and that's when we bought that additional lot because we knew we had to expand or something.
Wow.
And it was fun learning how to grow all those things. I had worked at Ellis Garden Center for several years.
Okay.
But it was not the ideal kind of work I wanted. And it wasn't paying to go out.
Right. But did that give you some knowledge that the others didn't?
I had some awareness of what bedding plants seem to sell well. What colors and some varieties. And also I learned a bit about shrubs and trees that I hadn't known before. We had always gardened when we were growing up. Mother had a big flower garden. Dad had a big vegetable garden. And back in those days, you put food by, 100 quarts of beans every summer, which I hated breaking.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot.
And tomatoes and all that kind of thing. And then flowers for the fair. My mother was very proud. First time she entered anything in the fair, big fat marigold, she got a blue ribbon. And it just thrilled her.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so you worked there with your 3 sisters, correct?
Yes. In the beginning, my youngest sister was still going to IU. Okay. And my other 2 sisters had already married and were living away from home. So in the beginning, it was just myself and my youngest sister and Mom and Dad. But it got to be where we needed more help. And so then my sister Judy, who's younger than I am, and later my sister Nancy, who's the oldest, all went to work there. And we worked a whole bunch as a family for a long time.
And how did that go?
It went very well.
It seems like you would be the type that would get along and not have the...
Well, my sister Martha she's Phi Beta Kappa. She wanted to stop and see if she could write. So she was the first one to retire from the greenhouse.
Okay.
And then my mother passed away, and then my sister Nancy has 3 grown daughters, and she had other things she needed to do.
Yeah.
And then she got remarried, so she quit.
Okay.
Her, the 3 daughters, Dottie and Beth Ann and Mary, have all grown up and have children.
Yep. And I should
So
say
far,
that's
I
one of
feel
the reasons. One of the reasons we were able to talk with you is because Dottie, who's your niece, is friends with our producer Rachel, and so we said we really need to talk to someone at May's Greenhouse, and she made the connection. So there's a nice big family there. When did you retire from the greenhouse?
Well, officially in 2006.
Okay.
Had to have a knee replacement, and that seemed a good time to retire. And then I worked there for a while. The next year, just kind of phasing things out, And actually, my sister Nancy had retired before that a little bit, I believe. I get a little confused. It's been a while. And she had these lovely, busy daughters, and she remarried, and that was keeping her busy.
Right.
So anyway, it was interesting to learn what plants would grow in what conditions, which ones you could put out before frost and which you had to wait till warm weather and which you had to wait till really warm weather. And
we know that Mother's Day is always a big weekend for you. Is that probably one of the biggest weekends?
Well, yes, because everybody's got or has had a mother, and they all want to do something for her.
Right. But we were always told that that was sort of the day that you could start to plant vegetables and things like that.
You could plant almost anything after that. Yeah. Yes, that's late enough.
Yeah.
There are a few exceptions. Tropical or subtropical things that we use as bedding annuals can't take any frost at all, so sometimes you wait a little later. But you can put almost all your vegetable plants and things out by Mother's Day.
So let me ask you this, because now you've seen the history and back from 1965, how have the consumer demands changed? What were they buying back in the late 60s and early 70s, and are they still buying those things today, or do they want different things?
Well, early on, they wanted vegetables. More people then grew vegetable gardens. It was kind of carryover from their own childhood.
Depression era people probably.
Yes, and then there wasn't so much to offer in Bloomington if you wanted something unusual. If you wanted some special melons or something, you maybe couldn't buy them in Bloomington.
Right.
We used to cut and sell a lot of peony flowers for Memorial Day.
Oh, okay.
They were a huge demand.
Yeah.
No more.
We don't do that anymore, do we?
Either you put artificial stuff out or you buy something at the grocery store that's more interesting than peonies.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 long rows of peonies down at my place. And nobody's interested in it anymore.
And so what are people buying now? Still some vegetables.
We sell a lot of mixed pots with flowers for the cemetery, but also for people's homes. And hanging baskets, gorgeous. They grow better than I ever could. Gorgeous.
Yes, your place is
now.
the best place to buy a full hanging basket, because that's where I have to go. If my mom says she wants a hanging basket for her birthday, I mean, there's no reason to look anywhere else because they're so lush and large. I mean, they're so big and it's worth every penny.
Thank you.
She said, "Where'd you get this?" And I was like, "It's a secret. Like, I'm not sharing my secret with you, Mom."
We have a good, steady business in houseplants. We sell some water plants, water lilies and rushes and water iris and various things. The perennial thing has gotten good in the last 10, 12, 15 years. Before that, you could sell annuals. Nobody wanted perennials. But also the annual thing has expanded vastly. A lot of different varieties.
Yeah.
And used to, you had marigolds and petunias and zinnias and, a few stalwarts. And anymore, there's a huge selection of things. The new stuff almost every year that companies are bringing out.
And mulch, you sell supplies and mulch and things like that.
Bug spray, mulches,
all that stuff.
Containers.
I always felt like as a kid, I don't remember mulch much. Like I think we had some big bark mulch, but now I feel like everybody puts down mulch over everything. I don't know why. I feel like that's something that's changed since like the 70s and 80s.
I don't recall ever having mulch. And we've talked about my grandmother had her own vegetable garden as well as a separate flower bed garden. I don't remember mulch.
Yeah.
At any
anywhere
point.
I think that's a new thing. So awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the flood that happened. If anyone is familiar with that, in February, this would be of 2019, that greatly impacted May's Greenhouse and their amazing employees who have pulled together and made a lot of sacrifices to get things back up and running, as well as some amazing members of the community who have done things to help make sure that May's Greenhouse stays for another, how many years has it been now? 30, 40, 50, some odd years. I can't do the math.
Right around 50.
Right around 50 years, yep. All right, so stick around. We'll be right back. You're at home in Bloomington.
Hi, this is Karen Rastel with Ruoff Home Mortgage. Did you know we are on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to applying for a mortgage? Loan Butler was created with you in mind. It's a fast, convenient, and secure way to apply online for a mortgage loan. It reduces the amount of paperwork and time for you. Save a tree and contact me today at 812-606-7653 for more details. Ruoff Home Mortgage is an Indiana corporation licensed by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. This is not an offer for extension of credit or a commitment to lend. All loans must satisfy company underwriting guidelines. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 141868.
This is your Real Estate Realist. Practical advice on buying and selling real estate based on my experience closing over 800 home sales. One of the most stressful times for a seller isn't waiting on the offer to come. It's that time period between when you've received the offer and when you hear back on how the inspections went. There are ways to prepare for the inspection that will help the process go smoother and calm the nerves. Here are some ideas. Number 1, ask your realtor for a sample inspection report. Then walk through your house looking at the things the home inspector will look at. Certainly you don't have the same training as a home inspector, but you should be able to check and make sure all the windows open and close, that there aren't any leaks under the sinks, and that doors open and close. Did you know that a burnt out light bulb can cause a buyer to request for the seller to pay for an electrician to come out and confirm that a light fixture isn't working? So save yourself the trouble. Number 2, make everything accessible. Make sure the crawl space door easily opens and closes. If the attic access is in the closet, remove clothes so the home inspector can get in there. And if you filled your garage while you were decluttering your home for sale, make sure that there are paths to the electric panel and the furnace. Making everything accessible will help ensure that the home inspector can get their job done and won't drag things out or cost you more money when the buyer insists on the seller paying for an electrician to evaluate the electric panel because the home inspector couldn't get to it. Number 3, make sure that people and pets are out of the house for the home inspection. It's important that the buyer feels comfortable to have open conversations with their home inspector. And number 4, seriously consider a pre-listing inspection. While every inspector is going to find different things, which is frustrating, I know, a pre-listing inspection can help identify if there are any big ticket or showstopper items. Knowing this before an offer can help you factor that in and make sure you're meeting your financial goals and not hitting any roadblocks along the way. For more information on preparing for a home inspection, check out my Real Estate Today podcast, episode 25. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and my website, www.athomeinbloomington.com.
My name is Joe Reinhardt, and Deb Tomorrow is my realtor. Deb helped us to sell a property that we had previously listed, for which we were unable to even generate an offer. Deb's responsiveness, professionalism, and her aggressive marketing strategy led to multiple full-price offers for our listing. And that's why I think Deb should be your realtor too. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to At Home in Bloomington. Thanks for listening. Before we get back to our guest, Helen May of May's Greenhouse, which I'm really enjoying learning the history of someplace I drive by a million times a day, I want to do our Facebook follow segment, and I thought we would keep with the plant, nature, outdoor theme with our Facebook follow and harken back to episode 25 of At Home in Bloomington, which was with Sycamore Land Trust.
Yes.
So if you are like us and you don't really have a green thumb, but you still enjoy spending time surrounded by plants, you can certainly make use of some of the Sycamore Land Trust properties and experience being outdoors. Those properties are everywhere, and then they're small and they're large. And in fact, last week I was showing a house in a neighborhood on the north side of Bloomington, and I was standing on the front porch and unlocking the front door, and I kind of looked over my shoulder at my client, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a Sycamore Land Trust sign that there's a lot in that neighborhood that is preserved by Sycamore Land Trust, mostly for the people in the neighborhood to enjoy. So anyways, from serious hikes to these small neighborhood preserves and everything in between, they've got a lot going on. So follow them on Facebook. We're hoping that the Bean Blossom Bottoms property will be open soon as well. That was one, remember, we were talking about with the boardwalk and stuff. So if you are listening to this sometime probably after June of 2019, check out Bean Blossom Bottoms property. It's really, really cool. Okay. So there was another day, I should have harkened back to the episode that we did with Abby Gitlitz and the Bloomington Creative Glass Center, because the day that we recorded that episode, do you remember we were recording it in the midst of like tornado sirens and thunderstorms, and there was a flash flood going on. So we managed to survive that. But afterwards, we started to hear stories of floods of 100-year proportions here in Bloomington, and May's greenhouse was impacted. Is that the first time that you had seen water at that level at the May's greenhouse property?
It's the first time at that level. We had been flooded once before because we are right on the banks of Clear Creek.
Yep.
And because the water flushes off Bloomington, it comes down fast off all the, the roads and so forth. And that one wasn't, it was heartbreaking, but it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
And then we did some improvement. We rip-wrapped some banks with stone so they wouldn't wash, and we raised a few things that we were allowed to. We're right on the edge of a floodplain, so, can't do too much in that respect. But this time I was down home. I couldn't get out because my driveway was under 4 feet of water.
Oh my gosh.
And anyway, when I did get up there, I was just astonishing.
Yeah.
It had run through the warehouses, and all the fertilizer and stuff sitting on the ground was wet and rotten, and the bags breaking open. And the perennial house, all the plants had washed from one end to the other, but the door hadn't opened, so they had just piled up there.
Oh, my gosh.
And they lost a lot of seedlings that were ready for transplanting. And they had seen the rain coming and done what they could. They put everything up on benches and
as high as they could get them.
Everything they could, but there was just a limit to how much space there was.
Yeah.
And it was pretty heartbreaking to look at, really.
There was a story on the a few days afterwards on the Facebook page for May's Greenhouse that they talked about what happened and what the employees were doing, and that they were waist deep in water with trying to turn off circuits and risking their lives, basically trying to just get things up as high as they could, save what they could, and they were forming kind of like a human chain to get from one building to the next and redirecting efforts. Meanwhile, one of the gentlemen who lives in the house on the property was losing all of his possessions, while he was busy trying to save, work with everything. And I was just I was impressed by that, that, you've got such a crew that's willing to just do whatever. Their cars were going underwater, but the focus was the plants and the greenhouses.
They are a wonderful bunch of people. They really are. I'm proud of them all.
Yeah.
The person who is doing most of the managing has been with the greenhouse since he was in high school.
It's amazing.
And Ed Swango. And then the other people are just unbelievable. Some of them have been there a long time.
Yeah, I noticed there's another gentleman besides Ed who does a lot, and he's been there probably since the 90s, I think.
He's just, well, if I name some of them, I won't remember to name the rest.
Gotcha. So we're just going to give one giant shout out to all the employees, past and present, probably, because you can't get to 50 plus years in the business without having good people along the way.
There have been a lot of good people working for us over time.
Yeah, with a great reputation.
Some of the people who are there now have been there a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know really what we would have done with the greenhouses if there hadn't been a bunch of good people, because my sisters and I are, getting too old to do this. And they've dug right in and taken hold, and it's marvelous. I'm very happy with the way it's going.
Yeah, it's nice to see that people see the value in what you've been doing and what your family has been doing for so long and wants to keep that tradition, even though, it's not by obligation because they're family members, it's because they see the value in this into the community.
They, when you get to growing stuff, and it's good work because you see your effort getting better and becoming something better than you started with.
Right, there's a payoff for sure.
And the people who come down are 99% really nice people. They're polite and friendly, and they want to know this and that, and they have suggestions about something else, and
that's great.
It's good work.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So in terms of the flood, because it got quite a bit of coverage, I think one of the things is that you don't have a lot of flood insurance, or if any.
No, well, it's so low there, and the floods are so infrequent that by the time you pay flood insurance for several years, you just as well let it wash away when the time comes.
Right.
Though we've done everything we can. Now, there's 20-some greenhouses there.
That's amazing. I want to encourage everyone to go onto the website, which is maysgreenhouse.net, and there's an aerial picture somewhere. Just dig around on the website, because you don't see it from the road.
I was going to say, I wouldn't have thought there were that
But when
many.
you see that aerial picture of all the greenhouse buildings, you're like, wow, there's a lot going on there.
And everyone has its furnaces and fans. Some of the furnaces were sitting on the ground. And that was the end of those furnaces.
Yeah.
And I think they're elevating all of them now.
Good.
So that if we get another flood, it won't be a furnace problem.
Right.
2 big generators had to be repaired that were flooded out. And of course, you have to have generators because the power goes off on a winter night.
Right.
You've got to have electricity.
Right. You need your dad to.
That was one reason. He got tired of those late winter calls.
Yeah.
He got the greenhouses, and he was up at night many of them.
Right. Trying to keep the plants warm, right? That's funny. And so you, in addition to your amazing employees, you had a lot of community members that wanted to come out.
Everyone was very grateful for those people. They came out and they transplanted and they cleaned up wet, gummy stuff, and they washed flower pots, and they really worked, and we just appreciate it to no end.
And I think there were even some GoFundMe fundraisers that were set up.
Started one of those.
Sita, our friend Sita Cohen, started one of those. She's a huge.
So I hadn't even thought of something like that.
Yeah,
because I'm kind of computer illiterate.
Yeah, right. So how are things now that you're about almost 2 months out from the flood, and obviously going into the busiest season of all, and I'm seeing lots of cars in the parking lot. So
well, they are getting things pretty well back together. There are still some problems, but not like we feared there would be. The pottery and stuff that was all muddy, I think it's all been washed now.
Yeah.
And the floors of the buildings scraped out, and the mud washed out of the parking lot. And but it was terrific. I'm not sure, but I believe they lost some big nursery stock too. It looks nice now. Like you can't really tell that anything's been amiss unless you see the high water mark somewhere.
Right. I think if you go in and look closely, but driving by, it looks like it's
Yeah.
back to business as usual. And I thought, wow, how did they pull that off?
I was astonished. I told Ed Swingo that I couldn't believe how well they had gotten things back together. Yeah. And he said they couldn't have done it without some of the help that was given to them by his customers and so forth. And we are very, very grateful for that.
There's just such a loyalty in Bloomington, and I just love that. One of the things I wanted to make sure that our listeners are aware of is what a great resource, not just to buy plants, but just for information about plants. So over the break, Karen, we were talking about, do you want to share your...
Well, I had mentioned that I had received a really beautiful flower of some sort, and from a borrower yesterday at a closing, and in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, she doesn't know that I don't have a green thumb, and I hope I can, keep this thing alive until I get it home. And it's still alive as of today. It's been 24 hours.
Good job, Karen.
Yes. I do want to keep it inside, and I'm going to try to figure out what I need to do that, because I don't have anything live in my house. No plants, no flowers, because I'll be sad because everything that I'm in charge of dies.
Right. So if you have questions about how to maintain that plant, you can just go to May's Greenhouse
if you're not sure what the plant is, take it down there and they'll tell you.
Oh, that's nice too.
Advise you on how best to grow it. That's one thing we've always wanted to do, is to help educate our customers, because a lot of them were beginners, just didn't know what was going on. There was a period, and I think still, if you ask for them, they'll hand out grower information sheets on various products. The people in the houseplant greenhouse are very knowledgeable. They can give you all kinds of information on keeping things indoors. And Jason is our perennial guy, our tree guy, I believe. I'm a little out of date. It's been a while since
right.
And by the way, you were talking about the Nature Conservancy and so forth.
Sycamore Land Trust.
We have a section of nursery-grown wildflowers in the perennials for anyone who's interested in growing wildflowers.
And those would be native wildflowers, right?
And they were nursery raised. They weren't dug in the woods somewhere. So that you're not tearing anything up. You have your own garden.
It seems like there's a big movement recently towards more native plants.
Well, yes, because a lot of the alien plants are getting out of hand.
Oh, right.
They're just...
Was it honeysuckle? Is that one?
Bush honeysuckle and Asiatic honeysuckle vines are very, very much a problem.
They're taking over my property.
Some of the things that we were advised years ago to plant for birds, multiflora rose, autumn olive, are just growing like thickets in places and just smothering stuff. The beautiful pears that are blooming right now are, the birds are spreading them, and they're just coming up in the fields and in the woods, and, So it is a problem.
Interesting.
And also a lot of the vining ground covers are getting away.
Yeah.
And,
I've seen that. I've always loved ivy, but boy, if you don't control that ivy, you have to rule with an iron fist around ivy. And and from my perspective too, with helping people buy and sell houses, they think, oh, it looks so cool to have ivy growing up the house, having vines growing on the house, and it's so destructive to your home. And when you pull it off, there's just residue left behind that you can't. So you got to be on top of that. Speaking of that, if someone is a first-time home buyer and they're kind of walking in and saying, I want to do a little bit of landscaping, what are some easy things that people can get started with? Plants that Karen can, and myself, can make grow.
Well, of course, generally speaking, if you do good soil preparation, annuals are easy. They won't grow in a hard clay or in mud that's wet all the time. And they have to have light appropriate for the plant. But they can give you a good effect in the first year.
So soil preparation, that's an interesting, see, I would think just pick the right plant, but no, you have to, they call it amend your soil. I don't know how you amend soil, but I know you're supposed to amend soil.
Our clay soil tends to pack, holds water too long, or gets too dry and is hard to get wet again. So you need to work some organic material in it. That means some really rotten vegetation matter of some kind. Used to be peat moss, but now they're worried about the peat bogs being torn up.
Okay.
And that means some plants that live in peat bogs are in trouble.
Okay, at risk.
But you can buy mulches, you can buy earthworm castings, things.
Yes.
You can buy various kinds of manure in bags. The main thing is to make the soil friable and loose, and so it doesn't turn into hard
Lighten
clay
it up
when
a
it
little
dries
bit.
out, you know. And then there's the matter of acidity, but you can get that checked. You can buy a little test that'll tell you whether the soil's acid or sweet. I mean, it's not a big deal there. You need to give them a little plant food occasionally and see that they don't get either extremely dry or be kept too horribly wet. But there's some really tough perennials you can plant. Peonies, ours have been there 50 years, and nothing done to them. They're still there. They're not as good as they used to be, but they're still there.
So could you take like a little baggie of soil into May's and say, how can I make this soil better? Is that enough?
Well, I suppose if one way to test it is put a couple handsful of soil in a quart jar.
Okay.
Fill it with water most of the way. Put a lid on it. Shake it really, really good, and just let it sit for 24, 48 hours, and it will drop out in layers. Okay. And you can tell if you've got any sand or organic material or fine clay. And that'll give you some idea of the proportions of each of those in your soil.
Interesting.
And then if it's a lot of clay, you say, well, I need some organic material. And of course, you almost always need at least some fertilizer.
Right.
Now, testing for fertilizer is beyond my ability.
Yeah, right. But that's so interesting, and I love that tip. That's awesome. I'm going to go home and shake up some dirt in a jar because, I think after having talked to you, my light bulb moment is it's about the soil.
Yeah, and you need to check that soil, not just the top 4 or 5 inches, but at least 6-8 inches deep to see what you've really got there.
Right. Well, that was my whole thing, too, with this cute little flowered potted plant. I was like, I don't even know where to start. Well, besides not having a pot to put it in. But I was like, well, what kind of soil am I supposed to get? And I literally I said, this is overwhelming, and I stopped.
It's one flower.
I know it is, but I'm going to keep this one as long as I can. It's really cute.
I believe in you. I think we've got the resources now.
Well, no, but I need to go down to May's, get me a pot, figure out what kind of soil.
If you're going to grow it in a pot, just buy you a bag of prepared potting soil. And there are soils for different things, like for exotic things like orchids, and there's something special for African violets usually. And then there's all-purpose things, which is probably what that needs.
Okay.
But they'll be able to tell you.
I know.
That's awesome. So maysgreenhouse.net is the website. And do you know the hours? I know you're not down there during all the open hours.
When I was there, they were open 9 to 5:30.
Yep. And then Sundays, I think it's noon to 5:30. Yeah,
yes.
and I think that's still what that says on the website. So definitely. And open year-round, right?
Pretty much. I think they close just a little time right after Christmas to sort of get reorganized for spring a little.
But I know we've gotten some beautiful evergreen wreaths there during the holiday season and trees and things like that as well.
They buy wreaths in from the north, but they also make wreaths.
Nice.
So they have some individual, slightly different things available.
Wonderful. So I want to encourage everyone to go support this local icon, been around for more than 50 years, beautifying Bloomington and providing resources. Thank you again so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, enjoyed the show, and it's inspired us a little bit,
Absolutely.
All right. And we will be back with another episode. You're at home in Bloomington. Got a show idea? I'd love to hear it. And be sure to contact me for all your real estate needs and questions too. You can email me at deb@realrealestatetoday.com and follow me on Facebook at Deb Tomorrow Realtor. To contact Karen Rastel for all your mortgage needs, call 812-606-7653 or log on to ruoff.com and go to the Bloomington Center. Thanks to all the Bloomington people who make production of At Home in Bloomington possible. Special thanks to superstar producer Rachel G. Gregorio, digital guru Cynthia Hogan at Monster Digital Marketing for website design and hosting, and video genius Wes Lasher in the production house for engineering the show.